Hi everyone. Today, I've picked out some great stories for you. And so, let's begin. Force me to accept to give my business away to someone else. It'll hit you in the pocket in a way that you will never expect. Around 15 years ago, I took on a hotel. I'd seen this hotel on the street that I owned a bar be massively underused and basically be an overflow hotel for when a local chain was full during peak summer season. It was basically empty for 46 weeks of the year and I let my interest in it be known should it ever become available. And I'll ask you to subscribe to my channel, it's very important to me my friends. 3 years later I'd kinda forgotten that I'd even said anything to the owner, but they hadn't forgotten, and the large hotel chain pulled out from their contract, and now with only a few weeks until the summer season starting, they now had an empty property with no tenant and no income. I managed to negotiate a very good price for year one, as I'd have to throw money at the place to get it ready, and I'd still lose a few weeks of the summer with all my best efforts, and then a reasonable rent for 3 more years, with a renewing clause that they assured me would be honored. Basically if I wanted to continue, they would simply let the contract roll on. They said that as long as I was happy and the rent was being paid, that's all they cared about. They said they were happy with the rent I was paying, and all seemed fine. I gutted every bedroom. New wiring, lights, power switches, bedding, curtains, all cosmetic stuff to make it nice to look at. I also repainted every room. The walls hadn't been painted in what looked like at least a decade, and some of the walls were so rotten that I had to scrape so many back and treat them before I could paint them again. I basically gave the whole place a facelift. I did it all on a small budget and called in every favor I could. I worked 20 hours a day for weeks whilst still operating another business, a bar, on the same street. Eventually we opened and it was a hit. I was able to make a nice profit in year one and have money to reinvest and remodel the hotel even more for year two. I installed new aircon, converted the bar downstairs into a coffee shop, and year two was better than year one. It was at this point the owner decided to break the contract. He had received a much better offer from another chain hotel again. He had realized that I had taken his piece of shit falling apart hotel and made it much better, and now he wanted to cash in on all my work. His exact words were, "I'm not going to renew the contract in 2 years' time." So basically I could accept his offer to me now. He owned a bar that wasn't working and he wanted me come in as his owner partner to make it work at no cost to me if I walked away from the hotel, or if I saw out the contract I would be given no offer of any sort, and he said he would actively work against me for those 2 years as well. So I was basically given an offer I couldn't refuse. I was paid to leave and received a shareholding in a bar at no cost to me. Sounds reasonable I suppose, but I was still bitter that I was being made to take it whether I wanted to or not. I had put so much hard work into that hotel after all. I couldn't let him get away with how he went about it, could I? Cue petty revenge. This was a 30-bedroom hotel, 80 beds. I went around every single room and removed all but 3 of the 7 bed slats on every bed. The mattresses were held up and in place, but anything more than lightly sitting on the bed on the exact point of a slat and you'd fall through the bed and onto the floor below. So the new hotel chain took over, changed the name and basically opened my hotel as it was. As a chain, they were busy immediately. After only 3 days, they were closed again and had a delivery of 80 new bed frames. Owner was made to pay for them all, as he had signed a contract to say that he was providing a hotel in perfect condition, and he had assumed that's how I'd have left it for him. I had not. To this day, he has never said a word to me about it. He just ate the bill and said nothing. But we both know that I got my revenge. Further info. He was an awful partner, and after I had made his bar work, he forced me out of there too, but with no offer of anything this time. During COVID he went bankrupt as all his businesses were hospitality based and they all had to close. It was at this point you should have contacted an attorney. Perhaps it's a poor wording on my part. He didn't break the contract as such, just let me know that our verbal agreement that he would renew was no longer the case. I could have seen the contract out and then had nothing to show for it afterwards, but I was forced to accept it what was being offered to me. Interestingly enough, verbal contracts are still legally binding in some cases. Might have been with it. Good story though. Seems he got what was coming to him. This is definitely petty revenge. But it could have been so much more. My heart aches for the missed opportunities. I agree. But I had the prospect of working together with him for years after, so I couldn't do too much. This was just about the max that I could do. This was your mistake. Someone who would do this to you once would do this to you again, and that's exactly what happened. Their better play would have been to slash costs to the bare minimum while extracting every dime of profit from the place that you could. I'm reminded of a line near the end of the movie Citizen Kane where Boss Getty says he's going to need more than one lesson. And he's going to get more than one lesson. Don't mess with the lady using a walker. My mom was handicapped due to a stroke and she had to use a walker to get anywhere. Her and my dad loved this local seafood restaurant. It was their favorite place to go to dinner. It was a really popular restaurant and was always crowded. It had a long line to get in. We get to the restaurant and my dad drops us off near the front and he goes to park. The line was long as usual to get in. My mom and I waited for what seemed like forever to get to the hostess stand. My dad had come in at this point and my poor mom had to stand up the entire time because they had no seats to sit and wait. We finally get to the front of the line and this guy pushes his way to the front and starts yelling that he needs to make a reservation, that the last time he was there they had screwed up his reservation. Meanwhile we had waited in this line and finally made it. My poor mom's standing up this whole time and this guy just takes over. The hostess doesn't say not one word to us. She just lets him take over and takes his reservation info for 9 people for the end of the week. She never once said I'm sorry for the wait or told him he had to wait his turn. Nothing. I was so pissed my parents didn't go out a lot. They would look forward to going to this restaurant so much when they were able to go. It was difficult for my mom to get around with a walker. They usually would wait until one of us could go with them to assist my mom. The guy was so rude, so obnoxious and so entitled. I was livid. So the next day I called the restaurant and cancelled his reservation. I remembered everything he said and I pretended to be his wife. Lesson to be learned. Don't mess with my mom, God rest her soul. She didn't have many opportunities to enjoy life after her stroke and that guy messed with her. My only regret is that I couldn't go back the night of the reservation to see his reaction. Edit sorry this is my first post ever and I should have included this. We did have a reservation. However the line to get to the front to give our name was incredibly long. Normally she could have sat down on one of the benches while I stood on line but there were no seats available. No one offered to give her a seat either. She also couldn't sit in the bar because the bar stools were too high for her to get up on. My mom was partially paralyzed from her stroke. It was difficult for her to get around and I would never ever deny her the opportunity to go to her favorite restaurant. Both my mom and dad knew what I did because I told them. They both laughed and said I was crazy. They both wished they could be there on Friday night to watch his reaction too. I had a similar revenge on somebody that cut the line at a self-service kiosk. He was so rude when I called him out and the lady behind the counter didn't say anything. When he typed in his number on the screen, "You get a text when your order is ready," I noted it down. When I got home at the end of the day, I signed his number up for wake-up calls at 3 a.m. and daily Bible quotes. Well done, using this. I'm stealing this idea. Gotta have the walker with a built-in seat to rest on it. I have one, and honestly the best thing ever. I got one of those for my mom. It seriously is amazing for her and helps out so much. I got such a feeling of freedom when I got mine. I mean, I still have a hard time walking, especially when it comes to any kind of distance, but I have the support to get around and the chance to rest when necessary. So freeing. Yes, me too. I love my rollator, never go anywhere I'll have to walk farther than a block without it. Have chair, will travel. Yes, love the rollator with the seat. And the little basket. At first I was embarrassed to use it since 35 years old with invisible autoimmune arthritis, who is also fat. But honestly if anymore, that thing is gold. The cane would bother my back and was useless if both legs feet ankles were bring douchy. Hubs and I now joke that when it gets worse, I'm gonna get a mobility scooter and modify it for 150cc engine, slap some flame diesels and Hello Kitty stickers on that bish, and roll my ass around in style. I'm 50, fat, with fibro, and badly arthritic knees. Using a cane made me feel so off and it would always cause the other knee to hurt worse. I always kinda felt like a fake since I didn't use the mobility devices I knew I needed, but this summer I managed to tear up both knees worse and the PT suggested a rollator and it was love at first step. Nice revenge, but I'd have changed it to 30 minutes later so that he finally has to wait. Oh this was genius, you're so right. I wish I had thought of it back then. The revenge was great, but I don't understand why you wouldn't make a reservation for your mom. I should have included this when I wrote the post. This was my first post ever. We did have a reservation, but the line to get to the hostess stand was so long. It took us about 20 plus minutes to get to give our names. I will try to edit the post to see if I can include this. Well, then I'm disappointed the hostess didn't notice and if she did ask you if you had a reservation while waiting on the line. A good hostess pays attention to the folks waiting and if need be fetch a chair or offer assistance. Plot twist, the last time he was there they screwed up his reservation was someone else doing the exact same thing as op for his rudeness and entitlement. That was my first thought, well played for your revenge on him, but I feel bad for whoever is working Friday that had to deal with him. Although if same hostess, maybe not too bad. I can't understand how dude is so inconsiderate to push past the line and all, but had the thought to show up at the restaurant in person to make the reservation days in advance. You should see Boston for example. I feel so bad for your mom. I usually leave when the wait is that long, but I get that sometimes you just want to be out. My mom was a wonderful woman who would do anything for anybody. It was hard for her to get out. She looked forward to going to this restaurant so much I would never deny her the opportunity to go there. Usually we could sit down on a bench and wait for our name to be called. All of them were full. No one offered to give up their seat for her, and we couldn't sit at the bar because she couldn't get up on the bar stools. They were too high. Oh, this video has come to an end. If you want more such cool stories, then go to one of the many following videos.